Hey y'all, Monk Joseph here with the Broken Buddha. Today we're going to continue the S.O.S series that stands for Survivors of Schizophrenics. Today's video is going to be about victim training and the ensuing psychoses that go along with it. To explain a little bit briefly about this, schizophrenics are, I want to say, naturally lacking in remorse or sociopathic, but they have a conscience. So after they hurt you sociopathically, which means unplanned. If you look into your own stuff, it means it's unplanned. Um, they have to fix it. So they lose control, and instead of correcting the behavior that lost control, they will find a way to fix it. And so it's not really victim grooming. I mean, it kind of is. If you're the victim, like you're pretty much groomed to be a victim the rest of your life. And I don't mean like, oh, poor me, sad me. No, like you are trained after someone hurts you, instead of realizing that this person is sick, to allow them to fix it. And I'm like, it is what it is. Like society dictates that I can't lose my temper on people or ever go into psychosis around anybody or ever make a mistake. But as soon as somebody does it to me, it's like, oh, you're supposed to live and let live. But with them, but with you, we're not going to. So that's why I'm like kind of like against that whole thing. And then the ensuing psychoses, you end up with a lot of depressive and aggressive psychoses. And I'm making this video because it's widely misunderstood. I had a boss recently wildly misunderstand this. I tried to alleviate. I said in blatant, clean English. I tried to explain the depressive psychoses, and she went and told HR that I threatened suicide, and that is not in any way, shape, or form true in any way, shape, at all. Like it's completely unfounded. And there are some reasons for this. I want to touch on this really quick. There are two types of people who react negatively to the S word. I'll say it like that, since baby ears might be listening. Um, there are some people who just freak out because that's what society trains them to do and just like tries to get help or shoves you out of their life, but they're legitimately scared for you and themselves. There's another demographic of people that when they hear the S word, um, they take it to a tone as if you're threatening them with your suicide. Like, how dare you threaten me? And that's what I think may have happened in that earlier mentioned situation happening here. But I'm going to try not to curse in this, but it's a very passionate point. Like, how sick is that though, when somebody is trying, whether they're subconsciously reaching out to you or consciously reaching out to you, like how sick is that to make it so about you, to feel and express that you are threatened because this person's having a hard life. Like, and a lot of times I don't know exactly what it is. I'm gonna try not to ridicule this too much because that's what the people I'm discussing would actually do. Um, yeah, and I don't want to ridicule it because it's just, from my perspective, someone like that, and most people in society need to believe they're strong and smart. So it's like people's brains are doing all kinds of things to them when I say this that I don't think they're in as much control of as they think they are. And I have yet to meet an adult that will admit that they don't understand hardship, at least without having a long conversation where they're like, oh, that was your life. And even I'll say, hey, compared to some of the people I've met, it was a fairy tale. My hells that I talked about in here. And even, but to some of those people, you're talking about a lot of times that's a one extreme situation, like really extreme, that happened 1 to 3 times in someone's life, and then that was it. But it scarred them for life, and they're just toasted and can't come back. You see them on the streets a lot. But for me, it was consistent. So, yay for me. So let's get back to the topic at hand. So, victim grooming. My stepdad was better at it than my brothers, but I'm going to use my brother's example because I think it's more accurate to proper victim grooming. After I was full on into this, I guess, whatever, like lifetime psychosis my stepfather pushed me into, depressive psychosis. So I wasn't really functional as I thought I was as a child. And my brothers would, and I grew up with my parents blaming friction on me, my brothers blaming friction on me. And it's weird if you look back in hindsight to have a whole family blame someone who's 4 to 6. And then as it went on, like continuing, like, what the heck do you think a 4-year-old or 6-year-old did to your family that four of you could not adapt to or change? Anyway, not the point. So yeah, my brothers would come up to me, and pretend to want to play with me, and they were like, gods in my eyes when I was a kid, and so I was always like overly joyful. And as soon as they get me to drop my guard, they would do something to hurt me, until I cried. Like they would push me until I broke. The same thing my stepdad would do every time he lost his temper, whether it was called for or not. Most times it wasn't. And they would do that, and then eventually they'd let me up or stop, and then they would try to bribe me to, play or do something. And sometimes they could talk me out of telling mom, and sometimes they couldn't. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was like some next level traumatization, especially if you see it from the perspective of me going through an adult autism diagnosis these days. And, it's pretty much just my brothers tearing down their brother who's slower than them and doesn't understand. And, I never learned. I was never able to learn. This is why I lean more towards the autism diagnosis. I mean, that's where me and my therapist agreed is where we're going to with this. But yeah, I was never able to learn. I never, ever, ever was able to figure out they want to play with me. That means there's something wrong. They're going to hurt me. But this never changed. It always kept just like that. So yeah, so that's the victim training. I mean, you got to think about like the hundreds of times I had people hurt me. I mean, they were doing it for fun. They'd come up to me smiling, like they weren't mad or sad. They would just like, hey, what are we doing right now? I don't know. Let's go make our abuse victim slow brother into a state of trauma and then try to bribe him out of it. And I'm not saying this isn't normal brother behavior, but after enduring the abuse they did, I'm sure that this was regular and more extreme than, I mean, they were sociopathically enjoying harming me. And I've heard of other people having like crazy brothers and stuff, but I feel like this was a weird line cross. And my brothers hated me growing up, man. My mom says that their dad trained them to hate me, but I don't buy it, man. I think that she did her part to separate us and keep her favorites and not favorites separated wherever she wanted. I don't know where I fit in that spectrum. I just know that they both do things where they're not like exactly honest about how they feel about us and what they tell us about the others. All right, not the point. So that's the victim training. And to this day, I still have a hard time if somebody causes me emotional, physical pain, understanding that person did me harm. I should not give them a second chance to do that. And if I do, I shouldn't keep giving them chances. My brain is just now catching up to this at 41. Yeah. And then on the stepdads, I mean, obviously he is like the master ultimate manipulator. So he could, I actually still, no, he didn't actually do that good because I was telling my mom I wanted him out and she had to ask me to keep suffering so she didn't have to experience loneliness. And that's the whole thing. All right. So that's the victim blaming. Now let's go to the psychoses. There is depressive and aggressive psychoses. The fact that my depressive psychosis, and this is, again, guys, really quick, these videos are for the people who have survived schizophrenics. If you want to watch it to understand what's going on out there, cool. Otherwise, I don't really care of anyone's opinion who has not survived a schizophrenic about these parts because you just don't know. All right, so these psychoses are widely misunderstood. My depressive psychosis comes from the fact that a grown man, not only was a grown man and my brother's allowed to assault me at will without any repercussions ever, but I had a mom who was not able to care about these things. So it's like literally just this like why me thing that got pulled into. And on top of that, you've got these four people telling you like, oh no, you're just born a piece of crap. Pretty much is what I was told my entire life. And I would even bet money that to this day, the friction that I have with my family is being blamed on. I'm going to smile when I say it because I know it's more than likely true, but being like my father, despite not being allowed to spend time with him because my mother at one point used me as a weapon against my family, which would kind of explain now that she's that type of person and why my stepdad was able to use her as a weapon against me. Not the point. Okay, so after all that brutalness, I mean, it's just hard to accept that somebody could do that to a person. To that extreme. If you watch the videos, like it's just really hard to believe. And you wake up every day like this is my life, and you got to sidestep terrible thoughts. And if you've ever experienced true trauma or a full-on traumatic childhood, this happens to you almost every day. You're gonna have terrible thoughts in your day. Either I want to react aggressively or I want to react in extreme depressively. But there's a huge difference between waking up in a suicidal psychosis or a homicidal psychosis and being suicidal or homicidal. If you know that your brain is reacting to what you may understand as like negatively, like you're not going to sit there. What I'm saying is you don't wake up and go, you don't sit up and go, I want to kill myself. You wake up and you're like, man, not again. All right, whatever. Let's do this. And then you got to sort it out, sidestep it, do some exercises, whatever. So that's for the depressive psychosis. And I'm explaining this again because I'm tired of people getting it misconstrued. Just because I understand like darkness put in my brain by other people and still have to deal with it because they couldn't or refused to, is not the same as somebody who is like, I'm going to kill myself or I'm planning to kill myself. That is completely different. And also, for those who don't know, if you know anyone who is surviving a daily psychosis like this, don't ever go around telling anybody that they're going to kill themselves or that they mentioned suicide, all right? Because that's just not true. And it's dangerous, right? So I have to survive this extreme moment every morning as soon as I wake up, something that most people wouldn't fare well with. We'll just say it like that. So then to find out that someone's going around telling people that you're suicidal or that you're threatening suicide is very, very disturbing because, you know, you're in this fight for your life every single day. And then just because somebody doesn't understand, can't accept reality, or just won't ask a question, has to go around telling people something that's not true. Um, yeah. So that's pretty brutal stuff. Don't do that to people. Really, come on. Like, pay attention, ask a question, especially the one I'm talking about. I made it very clear there was nothing like that, but, you know, she either got my boss either got confused or got scared for whatever reason. I try to alleviate those things, but once somebody gets scared who hasn't experienced trauma, they're kind of hard to get out of it. Um, in my opinion, like once you get somebody into like, you know, really open their fear up, not intentionally, you know, that's their lack of life experience and ignorance that opens up that fear. But again, not my fault. You know, I tried to tell you the things to not get there, and somehow you allowed it to embellish to take you there, and it's pretty dark. All right. Um, okay. Now for the aggressive psychoses. So for me, being on what I understand as the more autistic side of processing, I do have an aggressive. If I'm depressed long enough or I get bullied long enough, eventually, like any creature, I will start to get angry. But my aggression manifests in like sad, scared panic. If I'm in front of people, and one thing I don't think the general public understands is like, yeah, if somebody is provoking me via autism by doing lots of crazy things or things wrong all the time, I can usually manage it. It's when it keeps going and going and going, and I can't get away from it that I just start like, what the heck? Um, but I don't ever actually. The most aggressive that I get is adamant speaking, and for some reason, adamant speaking to, you know, associates, you know, people I associate with, or coworkers, bosses, subordinates, anything. Um, the communication curve is just rough. So, all right, I got off topic there. So, yeah. So, and I've also noticed that like the adamancy of which I speak to them is enough. Like I don't have to lose my temper. And I wouldn't even say it's enough. I mean, it's almost uncalled for, but I don't understand why they react so poorly to it. I'm not yelling. I'm not raising my voice. I'm not cursing. Um, they can just sense my adamancy, and you know, it. People always get like weird and shaky. Like if you've known me on here, I mean, you may have seen me cuss a couple times. I thought I might cuss on this because it's a very passionate video of mine. That part of the attacks that you see, and again, this video is for the other people who survive schizophrenics. You know, so you got to get out of that victim mentality if you need to stop being social. But that's also a little easier for me, given the mindset I told you that I have. These mosquitoes, I've got on some spray, and they are just loving trying to find a spot. All right, so that's it. And as far as so, I can't speak for everybody. Some people like so I was raised with this very aggressive person, and some of that is instilled in me. Like I am capable of getting very high energy and what would someone consider aggressive. I mean, it's just highly unlikely, like super highly unlikely. Because as a yogi and a Christian Buddhist, I mean, if somebody walks up and spits in my face, I am trained to turn the other cheek. So it's not like it's not my first thought. It's not my first go-to. You know, I'd say in that moment you've got a 50-50 chance that whether I'm going to walk away or do what any other human would do. Um, so yeah, so and that's all misunderstood. I think the majority of people haven't experienced, especially Americans, haven't experienced nearly as much trauma as they think they have. They just think it makes them look strong and smart to say that they've experienced trauma, and it doesn't. You know, because when you're in front of a real trauma victim, you just look like an idiot talking about your little stories of things that happened to you as an adult that you shouldn't have been places or saw something real and just normal human stuff. Like I don't feel bad. Like if all your trauma happened after 18 or 21, you know, I'd still help you through it, but don't expect to drop a pity over here. You know, you're talking to a 4-year-old who got assaulted by somebody 6 times his size. All right. So if you have any questions and you're a survivor of a schizophrenic, you're more than welcome to ask a question or leave a comment. You know, we're gonna get through this together, guys. So some of these videos are getting hundreds, some are getting like 50 views. I don't really care. Like I said, I'm not doing these for the views. If I wanted views, I'd be doing Wing Chun and Kung Fu again. All right. And I'm still going to be doing those videos, but this is pretty much this series and form series is all I'm really down to. All right. So I'm gonna stop rambling now. Yeah, we're at 15 minutes. It's a long video. So thanks for stopping by. The next video I will have to contemplate, but this series will continue because I have seen it help some people. I've seen people get the string they need to survive and keep going. If you're watching this video and you think you don't understand these things, yes, there are people. It is that hard to get proper understanding and help for this that there are people using my YouTube videos. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that because it's very serious. That's why I did it as their way to pull themselves up and be like, okay, cool, I'm not alone and I can do this. So yeah, so mission accomplished. And I'm going to keep doing them. I don't care if I get 5 views and one of them's like, hey, I got the string, thank you. I'm going to be like, yep, next video. So these will continue until I'm like done or can articulate like an hour-long dissertation, like real clean and gnarly. That'll help everybody. Thanks for stopping by. I hope this helped people. I hope this helped people who aren't schizophrenic or a survivor of schizophrenic understand better. And if you are a survivor of a schizophrenic, then, please reach out. I'll do what I can to help. And I hope this helps. All right. Peace and blessings. Thanks for stopping by.